Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. His name is Flobo Boyce. Hey, Flobo.
How's it going, man? I'm so glad to be on the show. I can overcome everything because I read the book.
Look at that. I love it.
Man. Yeah, available on Kindle version. So I have the electron. So
man. You know what? That's awesome, man. Actually, I started a book series too called You Can Overcome Anything. And James, who we know, that's how we met. He actually was part of the first book too. So he has a pretty good story there too. So it's pretty amazing. But let me get you started. So for the people that are watching us and listening to us, let me give you a little bit about Flobo so you can get to know him. So he is a stand-up comedian, host, writer, DJ, and a master of ceremonies living in Los Angeles. Originally from Brooklyn, he graduated from Chapman University with an MFA in a film production.
Yeah.
Holy cow, man. You have a lot going on for yourself, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It's a long and winding road, man. I didn't think I would be doing emceeing in comedy, but I came out here to be a film major because that's what everyone comes out here for, it seems, in my circle. And but yeah, everyone I know, everywhere I'm from is from Brooklyn, man. I'm 100% New York.
Yeah, gotcha, man. So let's talk about that. I want to take it back, right? I want to peel out the time frame here. So you were born in Brooklyn. Tell me about your upbringing. How was your life as a kid? What dreams you had? What was going on through your head at that time?
Kind of embarrassing question because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Power Ranger. That's
okay. That's cool.
Time. No, but I'm the son of immigrants, and I was born in Brooklyn. I mean, I'm first generation American, and my brother and I did public school, which is why I'm a big proponent of public education, and it was cool. I know it's cool and trendy now to be on Instagram and say I came from nothing. I won't say we were poor. I say we were working class. And I tell people the difference between that is poor people are asked the question, are we eating tonight? We will complain and go, oh, rice and peas again, Mods, 5 times this week. But what little we had, we made do. And even though all my family were left-brained people, like my dad is an electrical engineer, my mom was a nurse, my brother's a computer engineer, now he's a tin knocker, a welder. I always wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, and I came into being a filmmaker, and now I'm a stand-up comic. So I was always a right-brained one.
No, I love it. So where's your family originally from?
Barbados. So the West Indies, the Lesser Antilles, Leeward Islands.
Yeah. Got it. And let me ask you this: as you were growing up in Brooklyn and just being in that environment, like, did you ever had any major challenges that you had to face as a kid? And you reflect back now, I'm like, there was a lesson to be learned from that.
Yeah, there's a reason why they say Brooklyn's a third parent, man. They teach you a lot of things, like don't leave things unattended. You know what I mean? If you got to fight, you got to back it up. I didn't get too many fights because I was really heavy. I was like a really fat kid, and that's what I got made fun of the most. And this is my voice. So imagine being from Brooklyn and having this voice. People always wondered, like, what are you? I'm just American, And so that was a challenge that I had to deal with for sure. Because the time I got to be an adult, I was unhealthily, morbidly obese. I was like pushing 375 pounds. And so, but as a kid, I was always the biggest kid in class. I always picked last for things. Never had a girlfriend, never dated because I was just, the heavy kid with the bad acne.
And just kind of dealing with that. I mean, and it's funny. I had somebody else on the show a couple of episodes back, and we were talking about bullying and how that is, it can really mess you up, as a kid. But more so, there's also bullying in the workplace and bullying, as adults, you see that a lot, going on, and it's a real problem, right? I mean, when you think about it, that can definitely create different aspects in your own life, right? So
Yeah.
how did that affect you? Whether people were picking up on you or not, like how did that
Sure.
affect you and just growing up and deciding,
It's one of those things where I'm not defending bullying on any level, but as a kid, you can sit and rationalize and say kids don't know any better. Like, yeah, they have parenting and all things, but they're going to, in my case, public school and seeing cultures and sizes and shades they haven't seen before, and that's how they're coping. Bullying in the workforce is almost even worse because you know exactly what you're doing,
right?
And that kind of a thing. But I realize for those of us who are bullied, you have a choice. You can either choose light and go, I'm going to make people feel comfortable as I can because I was uncomfortable for being myself, or you can choose darkness and say, I am not going to let anyone treat me that way again. Most people are in the middle. They kind of go from back to forth depending on the situation. I think that's a healthy response, because sometimes you want to be as compassionate, golden rule, but if someone disrespects you, you shut them down. The idea is you don't want to become too extreme. You don't want to become passive and accept all the negative bullying you get, and you don't want to be someone who's absolutely militant and for no reason to the point of being abrasive. So I think we're all kind of in the middle.
Right. Yeah, I get you. One thing that keeps coming up, and I see it a lot with people, and just, I do mind coaching and things like that, is deciding, creating a decision, taking a chance, deciding whether or not the decision I make today, how that's going to impact my future. And I always tell people that the choice and the decisions that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? Because you obviously decided to leave Brooklyn to come to LA, right?
Yeah.
And so how did that decision come about? How long did it take you? Because I think that many people get hung up on creating and making a decision that can really, you never know, right? I mean, you don't go into something like, I go into a marriage hoping that I'm going to be married forever, or I go into a business venture hoping that I'm going to make a lot of money. At least I don't focus on the negative. You just don't know the outcome. And a lot of people are so afraid of the outcome to an extent, but they get hung up on the decision. So how was that for you, talking to your family, your parents, all that stuff?
So it was a little bit different because I went to Florida first. So I went to graduate high school in Brooklyn. I went to Florida for undergrad, and when I graduated with a degree in broadcast communications, I had a decision to make. I had a job lined up in Miami doing like news gathering, or it was to finish and do more schooling in California. So I think my situation is different only because I know school can be kind of like a safety net. You're not going out there and be like, oh, this is life. But the decision to go across the Rocky Mountains was hard. And the exciting incident was this. I wanted to be a filmmaker. This is what I wanted to do. And I was so young enough that I didn't have much to my name. I didn't have roots. I didn't have grandkids. I didn't knock anyone who does, but like, it was like, if I do this now, will that still fluid before I get set in my own ways? It'd be a lot easier. And I remember sitting down with my parents and I got two different flavors. Mom was like, I don't know what you're doing, but I support you because you're my baby boy. And my dad was like, are you nuts? But I told my parents, I'm like, you guys came from another country. Like, you guys decided to make the decision. Let me try and fail on the other side. And if I failed, I'm still in the United States. And so that was kind of the thing. So to anyone listening, that's it. You have to make up your mind in your mind. And if someone, I understand people will try to say no because they are not living the life you're living, to let them know, I'm making this decision because of this. And even if it doesn't work out, you knew that was the best decision for you at that time.
Yeah, two things that came to that, and I think they're pretty amazing golden nuggets, and I want you to elaborate more on that. The first one, you said, obviously when you were looking at this, you didn't have so much to your name. So the decision wasn't as hard, perhaps. It was still a decision, though. Looking back now, and maybe even right now at your age or where you're at in your life and the things that you do have to your name now, how much difficult would that be for you in making a decision similar to that in terms of saying, I'm going to jump, I'm going to overcome that, and I'm going to take the leap of faith?
Yeah, I really feel like I'm in a good position to sit there and say the decision has to be there. So I do a bunch of things, and I know we'll get into that in a minute. My main source of income is that I'm a wedding DJ. I'm a wedding DJ. I DJ events and stuff. And so I always say a game, if Italy called me up or the Philippines or Australia called me up and say, hey, we'll do, you can have the same life you have right now, but you can DJ in our country. Would you do it? I would say no. Like I love DJing, but it isn't my passion. Now, if Australia or Portugal or Philippines called me up and said, we'll have the same life you have right now, but you can have your own comedy variety show, or you can do the podcast you want, but you have to move, I go, yes. So having things is not the be all end all. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a life. It makes you prioritize which ones are true passions and which ones you're good at, which ones are just filling in time, which ones just paying the bills.
Yeah, no, I love that. By the way, maybe you and I should team up. I'm ordained, so you can be the DJ and the witness, and I can marry the couple.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely. Because I don't like to do them both because I think it's
Yeah.
kind of tacky doing both. I'll definitely call you. Like
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
a guy.
Yeah, exactly. The second thing that came to mind is you said, "Well, you told your brother, let me try it and let me fail and just let me try it, right?" And again, I believe that the only failure that we have in life is not trying, right?
Right.
Just because you try and you fail doesn't mean you failed. You're doing it. You're still going at it. You're still going at it. And I think that's where people are so afraid, and they have that fear that, well, what if this doesn't work out? What about if I fail? What if this? And then now you're getting all these what ifs and these buts and whatever, right? And so, thinking about that, how do you see trying or doing and failing in your everyday life? I mean, being a comedian, being a DJ, being a podcast host, do all these different things. I know for a fact myself, I failed a lot of times, but that's the reason why I'm still here doing this, because I've learned through those failures. There's a lesson to be learned, right?
Right. I think that for me personally, I'm not trying to speak for you or anyone else. The thing I had to learn, it wasn't so much my fear of failure. It was the fear of other people knowing. Like if you're in a relationship and you know you're not in love, you're like, I'm getting out of here. But then you're like, what will my family think? You know what I mean? I flew them out for my wedding. They told me to stick with it. Or like, hey, if I'm a comedian and if I don't make anyone laugh, I don't want people to say this guy isn't funny, don't book him again. So I don't want to sit here and say, don't care what people think. That is a very quick way to sum up how this thing is. Don't care what people think. We're human beings. We're tribal by nature. We are community-based. We are hardwired to care what people think. What I'm asking you, or what I'm challenging everyone to say, is look and say, if people think this, let them know, be assured of why you decided to do what you do. So when I had that breakup, or when I failed on stage, or when I was out of money and being like, well, this is an experiment I did, it was, I tried the best course of action. I didn't try to sabotage myself on purpose. It didn't work out right now. And I think that makes a lot of scary things less scary. I won't say it gets rid of them completely, but it makes them a lot less scarier.
Right. Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. And then earlier you were talking about prioritizing, right? And so if somebody was to give an opportunity, different things, I believe that kind of in the field of work that we're doing, right? And so if you're doing your 9 to 5, definitely, by all means, continue to do that. I think there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to get into entrepreneurship, obviously that's a whole different animal. And I believe that just as you're doing multiple different things to sustain you, you have to do that, right? And so how do you go about, do you have any tactics, I guess, or any ideas on how you go about prioritizing whether or not for this I'm going to jump and I'm going to take this big risk, for this I'm going to be a little bit more moderate? Like, do you have any way of prioritizing that?
Well, I have a bunch of things in the fire, like you said, but the one rule of thumb I have, I think it's universal, is that I never dedicate myself to my job. I dedicate myself to my work. So I'm not knocking anyone that has 9 to 5, because you got bills to pay, you got kids to feed, all that stuff. But if you're able to give your 100% and say, hey, look, this project I'm working on in my business has my name on it, I'm going to give that, great. The moment you're getting up going like, I hate my job in my life, but I have to go because, that's a sign. Your body's telling you it's not working, it's not being positive for you. So yeah, if the bring you joy thing is great, but I understand about priorities, but you got to understand, is this getting me closer to what I want to do? Is this getting me closer to the life I want to have, whether it's financial, whether it's creative, whether it's business-wise, and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah. You remind me of a quote that I like by Les Brown. I think he was Les Brown, that he talks about, and he says, make sure that you work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else, right? And so going back to that is like kind of what you're saying. I came from corporate America. I love my job. I think it was one of the best jobs. It was just not my passion anymore. And I wanted to become a full-time entrepreneur and do the things that I'm doing right now, follow that vision, that passion. Except when you're thinking about that and you think about work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else, it's not necessarily like work hard like a slave. It's more like, instead of coming, if you're doing your 9 to 5 and coming home and sitting on the couch and watching TV or just being tired, if you have a dream, you have a vision, you gotta work on that when you get home instead of watching TV. Like, you gotta work hard on yourself so that you can let that go, right? And that's probably a very challenging thing for people to do, and not so easy, because it's really separating you from the normal or the 95% to where the 5% want to get to or be. What have been some of your lessons though for you doing this? Because I one thing that I was actually talking to James, our friend, and one thing that I was talking to him about is that through this journey, and Les Brown also said this, is that it gets lonely at the top because the bottom is overcrowded. And that is very true. I think in this journey, you're gonna have a lot of moments that you're down, you're alone, you feel like you have nobody else, but that's because you're working on something bigger. You're going through that breakthrough. And so that's one thing that I also want to tell people is that don't think that being an entrepreneur is an easy thing. It's not, by no means. There's a lot of things that go to that: emotional, physical, mental, financial. Is like your tenacity has to be there. So I want to hear from you how that has been for you.
Sure. So when people think about entrepreneurs, or people who started the empire, you think of the end result, like the Amazons, the Elon Musk and stuff. And I think a lot of my friends get kind of put off because, again, with social media, it seems that entrepreneurs are popping up everywhere. Well, do this, do that, do that. You don't know who's valid or what that means. But I could say this from my experience: if you have a 9-hour job, so if you work 8 to 5, and the time, and once you add in the sleep time, the time getting ready for work, the time commuting from home from work, in all fairness, you have about anywhere between 90 and 120 minutes of downtime. That is not a lot of time. And so it gets very overwhelming, because if you want to come home and say, oh, I'm gonna come home and write 2 novels and I'm gonna spin 10 plates and run 20 miles, you can home and go, after I ate, I'm kind of tired. And that's where tired today becomes tired tomorrow. And that becomes a month and month and month. So I challenge that. So you have 2 hours, that's what you have. Slice off 20 minutes. I don't care what that is. I don't care if you write a page. I don't care if you research a new app. I don't care if you call up a friend and say, hey man, tell me about your business. But 20 minutes a day is all you need. You can do 20 minutes to brush your teeth or to shower. Prison inmates who have no rights in solitary confinement get an hour of free play for themselves. Just an hour a day, and it becomes a muscle, because then you get used to doing that hour a day. You're like, all right, I'm gonna do 1.5 hours a day. And I don't know about you, but it was always a period of time where it was bleeding into my job. So I had lunch things I was doing, or I would go to work early and sit in the parking lot and do things, and that kind of fuels the spirit. But when you look at Elon Musk, you're like, I come up with a Tesla coil cell, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. I love that. And you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to what is your passion, right? What are you looking for? And so talking about passion, so you do a couple of different things: stand-up comedy. I want to know how you got into that, and also into being a host, writer, DJ, all of this. How did that all come to play?
It's all comes from comedy. It's funny. I grew up a big fan of comedy. I didn't have cable growing up. So in the 90s, we got a lot of reruns from the 70s. so I loved Philip Wilson when I was a kid. And The Tonight Show was with Jay Leno. That's the Tonight Show version I grew up. I know Carson's and Fallon and all that, but Leno was mine. I always wanted to do it. My girlfriend at the time had given me a living social Groupon for a comedy class in LA about 6-7 years ago. And when I graduated that class, the graduation was 3 minutes at the Comedy Store, which is a really big, famous comedy club here in Los Angeles, and I was instantly hooked. At 29 years old, I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and comedy begat a lot of things. So as comedy, people ask, hey, can you do a couple jokes for my shows? Master of Ceremonies. I answered the Craigslist ad looking for Master of Ceremonies. Surprise, they're a DJ company. Hey, do you want to learn DJ classes? Yeah, sure, I'll do DJ classes. I did that. I was a comedian for 3 or 4 or 5 years. I realized that I didn't have a fan base in smaller cities that were going to ask for me. So I got into hosting through AfterBuzz. And that's why I met James Lott Jr., who does so many podcasts. So when AfterBuzz shut down, I went full bore into my podcast. Now I have a podcast network, 7 shows and counting, because of the chain things I did. So what I learned was this: passion was comedy. If someone gave me a check to do comedy today and not do anything else, I would do that. But I kept myself open for different kind of things. And now I can sit here and say, oh yeah, I'm an MC, I'm a DJ, I'm a host. I do all these things because I kept my options open.
You know what? And I love that. And you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to be open to keep your options open. And there's always that saying, you got to be able to receive. You got to be able to accept things to come into your life. And I can kind of relate that to my own life too, right? I'm my main thing is I'm a real estate investor, right? I buy houses, I flip them, I do all that stuff. And then from that, I thought that was the only thing I was going to do when I left my 9-to-5 job, that it was just going to be the real estate. And from there, then I said, you know what about if I write the book? That's the book that I have here. And I'm like, okay. Then from there, I'm like, I connected with James a couple of years back, and I started doing interviews. I would come on people's podcasts. And before I knew it, I was doing a bunch of podcasts. And James was like, hey, how about we do some stuff together? We have 2 books together, right? So we did some collaborations. Then we did have a couple of songs. And I'm like, okay, now I'm doing songs. And now we have, I have almost going on my 8th book. And so the point to this is like, from just one thing that was a passion, because I left my options open, all these different things started coming. And I think that's the beauty of this. When you let yourself be open and accept, many things can happen. You just never know, right? Whereas a 9 to 5, you're really just stuck with that 9 to 5, right? And again, that might be for some people, not for others. I'm, not knocking them out. I'm just saying that that's really your only option at that point,
Yeah, it's the roller coaster analogy of life is so accurate, because it does have up and down, sure, but like, the friends who grip the bar and go, oh yeah, I'll go down, but then there's always the person next to them with their hands up going, woo! It's the same ride. They both survive, but you can enjoy it, right?
I love that. That's actually that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's the same ride. You're just at a different place, right? Doing that.
Yeah, I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah. Wow, no, that's awesome. So if people wanted to like connect with you, or like, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, there's 2 different sites you can check out. Flobito.com, if that's especially want to book me to be your DJ. FLOBITO.com. And it's true, as I say to my Spanish-speaking clients, es un lobo con un F. That's my name, Flobo. But if you want to look at all the networks of shows I'm podcasting and hosting, newamsterdam.com. That's KNEW, Amsterdam.com. See all the shows I'm working on. And you can hit me up on social media too, at Flobo Boyce.
Oh, nice, man. And here's one thing that I like that you mentioned, and maybe you can just give us, elaborate more on that. Go ahead and try the thing, whatever that thing, just do it, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of us who are trying something new, we say, man, what if this is correct? I'll give you a story. So as a stand-up comedian, my whole job in craft is going in front of crowds. Well, guess what happened in 2020? Crowds disappeared. Like, what am I going to do? And I worried about how was I going to be able to work on my craft of stand-up comedy when crowds were not allowed. And so 2 things. One, I do most of my shows live, so I have feedback that way. But second, more importantly, I decided to write my first comedy novelty song. It's called Alone in the Club. You can search it right now. And I wrote it for fun in my room, but when it came time to release, I was terrified. I said, if everyone tells me that this was not the business, or if I wasted my time, my voice is out there, what's going to happen? Now, the release came out, people liked it, which is not the point of my story. The point of my story is I tried the thing. Now, after having so many comedy novelty songs, I went and go see, hey, how many people are doing this? And well, the disparity of quality was so low all over the place. I wasn't the best, and I wasn't the worst. I was in the middle. I had so underestimated my own skill that I said I wasn't even going to try this had not a global pandemic torpedo stand-up comedy. And I said to myself, why was I so scared going into this before? There's so much content out there. It's almost a guarantee you'll be in the middle. You know what I mean? Why not go for it?
Yeah, just do it, right? So, Flo, throughout the years, have you come up with any rituals, any habits, anything you do on a day-to-day basis to kind of keep you going positive, just moving through life? Because I think, again, some people get up in the morning, they're like, fuck, not another day, or like, I don't want to get up, right? And I think that, even right now with the pandemic and all this stuff going on, there's a lot of people that are in that depressed state of mind. So what do you do, if you do anything, to keep you going every day, positively?
Well, there's 2 things, and I think one is more specific to me. So as me is understanding where my ancestors came from. So my parents are lucky enough to come here and have a working class life. My grandparents chopped sugar cane for a living. They got up and they chopped crops to make molasses, to make Caribbean rum. That was what they did, butchers and fishermen. And so to be able to work on a podcast or even do what I do in this country is a blessing. The other side, though, I am a big proponent of positive affirmations. I don't sit there and say, you are smart, you are great. I'm too New York for that. But like, I have a wrestling championship belt, and I will hoist that belt. Or I have some songs that say the lyrics of how good I am. I'll scream those out loud. When I walk into a room, I announce myself as if I'm the #1 contender for the Success Championship. Like, these things help me out, because I know there's some days you're like, no one's listening, no one's watching, nobody cares. But so you got to push yourself. So when you do that, you'll see the flip. People go, hey, I see you, bro. I see you. The I see you term means I like what you're doing. Okay, fine. I'll roll with it. So positive affirmations, understanding where you came from and that you've come so far. Those are just like good foundation things.
Man, that's awesome. Two last questions for you because I value your time. The first question I have for you is, what has been your biggest lesson you've learned throughout your years?
Well, the biggest lesson I've learned, and that's like with everything put in together, is I think we all have the capability of doing it. I think we
Mhm.
all have a capability of having a medley of aptitudes. I know there's a school of thought that says you pick one thing and you learn it and become an expert at it. Again, not knocking that. But with enough time and enough dedication, you can learn two or three or four different interests at an expert level. I think that was possible. I always go to parties and someone says, "What do you do?" And I thought what I did was what I was. I'm a plumber.
Mhm.
I'm a surgeon. I'm a thing. But no, you can say, oh, well, I am a host, a podcaster, but I love doing this. I love eating this. I love traveling here.
No, that's awesome. And the last question for you is that if the people that are watching or listening to us, if they're going through any kind of challenge, whatever that challenge might be, what is one thing that they can start doing now to start overcoming that challenge?
I'm a big fan of having a high council. And if you guys have read this book, it's called Epic Win by Douglas Neff. And he's a fan of this too. Basically, you want to have a team of people that are fans that love everything you do. You know who they are.
Mhm.
People in the middle who are kind of like, they like things, but they don't like things to let you know. And a couple haters in there. And so when you have an idea, you have a feeling of what you're doing, or a project, or you want to work on, just pitch it to a member of those different factions to see what it is. And you'll be surprised how many people support you, how many people love what you're doing, even if they have notes of how you can make it better, how helpful that is. High councils make everyone better. Every CEO has a board of trustees. You need one
Mm.
too.
Yeah, it reminds me of the book is along those lines, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one of his chapters, he talks about although there was nobody, right? It's all the higher being or in your mind, right? The unconscious mind. But he did refer to that. It's like seek high counsel, talk to, pretend like you're sitting at this table with all these different people. Who do you want to be sitting at your table? Whatever that person might be, and start talking to them and conversating with them the ideas, the thoughts that you have. And so I guess my point is that if you don't have anyone like physically, you can still do
Sure.
this exercise on the unconscious level to help you move forward. And I really love that.
Absolutely. There's not one entrepreneur CEO like person
Right.
that does it by themselves.
Right, exactly. Yep, yep. I think there's a let me see. I think it's an African proverb. You want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think
Together.
that's the African proverb, and I
Yeah.
believe that. Right. If you want to go
Mhm.
far, go together with different people. Right.
Yeah.
So, man, I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed this conversation, and
Same
so
here.
thank you again for being here. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
If you guys have not read the book, You Can Overcome Anything, you should. It's good stuff.
Thank you. Really appreciate that, Flobo. Thank you again for being here, and definitely appreciate your thoughts and ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you connect with Flobo. Check him out. Look him up on social media. Call him. Hey, he can help you with something. And please stay tuned for the next episodes of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Till next time.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.